Welcome back, cruisers of the Comic Road. Now, if you want to help me, like, subscribe, and share to this station, and follow me on Twitter at the Mac Cave. Enough about that, though. Today I wanted to talk about the Fantastic Four. Specifically, the Fantastic Four, which relaunched in 2018 under Dan Slott's pen. Now, for those not in the know, the Fantastic Four, also known as Marvel's First Family, is a book primarily about stretchy genius man Mr. Fantastic, the vanishing and amazing Invisible Woman, the hotshot Human Torch, and the strongman Rocky Thing. I mean, obviously you guys really know all that stuff, so I don't need to go any more into them. But for those not soaked in FF lore and, might not follow it all the time, should know this run heavily involves the children of Sue and Reed, Franklin Richards, aka Powerhouse, and has the powers to pretty much do anything, and Valeria Richards, aka Brainstorm, who is smarter than her father. Either way, this comic starts after Secret Wars and directly conflicts with Marvel's concurrent running miniseries Marvel in 2-in-1. Well, concurrent running at the time. Why they did that? Who knows? The big two in continuity aren't always the best of friends, and whatever, it doesn't really matter. This isn't about that series. This is about the first major arc of the new Fantastic Four series. Well, new as of February 2019 when I'm recording this. So let's just get high and catch up on the series. Good? Good. 3, 2, 1, and oh yeah, spoiler alerts, because I'm going to be going over the first 3 issues in this series kind of in detail. Alright, let's get high. Actually, here's a few seconds, so if you definitely don't want spoilers, you can turn off the video. Alright, it's too late now. We open with Ben and Johnny living their lives in a world without the Fantastic Four when suddenly they both see a flare with the big Fantastic Four in the sky. What's interesting here is the way both react. Johnny rockets off to much cheer and fanfare with excitement to answer the call, heralding the return of the Fantastic Four, while Ben, who is out shopping with Alicia Masters, sits down and becomes morose because he knows the Fantastic Four are dead as a group. Because Reed, Sue, Franklin, and Val, they're dead and he knows that. Turns out that the ones who shot the flare are just kids, and Ben knows where they got the flare. He goes to said place and tells the person he entrusted it with a tale about how he got a special rock and a special mission with his family, and it's absolutely hilarious because it is the most Fantastic Four and family thing ever, where the FF have to pick out their best singer to go home, and Sue volunteers while everybody else claims it's Johnny. Sue hilariously asks her much younger, well at the time, son, if she can sing, and before she finishes, her son emphatically asks her not to sing. And the story, it convinces Ben that he needs to finally move on from life in the Fantastic Four and asks Alicia to marry him. Now, I told you there were spoilers, so you can't get mad. The first issue finishes its last pages with Ben inviting Johnny to a rooftop to ask him to be the best man for his wedding, and, well, Johnny blows up. He demands Ben reserve that position for Reed, and the two get into a near shouting match when Alicia breaks them up and Johnny storms off to make a plea to Reed and show Johnny a sign that they're still alive. Just shouting to the sky. And nothing happens. It really pulls on the chordae tendineae. Now look, I took it and passed a physiology class, so I'm going to use that somewhere, and it's going to be here. Either way, I really enjoy this comic because the roles reverse from the beginning of the comic between Ben and Johnny. Old Hothead drifts down to the embrace of Ben and Alicia, with Johnny now sad and Ben with the more positive outlook on the future, looking forward to it. But that's not all. It can't be, can it? No. We're treated to an uplifting scene with Reed asking if Sue believes in him, and that's what gives him the power to do the impossible when she says yes. Cut to people all looking up on Earth and on, absolutely dwarfing the moon in what they see. Heck, what they see even bigger than Earth? A gigantic number 4. And I'll admit it choked me up quite a bit. This issue fills out with Doom and Latveria being convinced to save Latveria by ruling again, and a really humorous single page by one of my favorite FF side characters, obviously foreshadowing future tales. But that's not important. Getting into the second issue, it deals with what Reed and company have been up to in the whole creating of universes thing that we last saw them doing in Secret Wars, and we get some humorous scenery with Val flirting with an alien monarch. Reed claiming something about this situation is pretty familiar, and Sue dropping all sorts of hints to Reed about how it basically reminds him of Namor. Trigger the protective dad mode, and Reed has Franklin create another universe to explore, so he rips his daughter away to do that. Now we see some exploring, people wishing they could see their old friends and families, and the parents enjoying themselves. And then we find out Franklin's power to create universes is done and he's losing some power. And that's coincidental because what just happens? The family's attacked by an enemy who crashes through the walls of reality to invade specifically them. The Molecule Man. Oh yeah, this comic also has Owen Reese, and I assume he's an individual Molecule Man to the one we saw in the Ultimates. He tries to repair the sky and Griever just absolutely atomizes him. The rest of the group barely escapes as universes fall behind them to Griever's pursuit, and everybody's trying to figure out where best to set up a defense when Val wants to save her Namor-like boyfriend's dimension and crashes them there. Griever gets there immediately and neg-diffs Franklin, who tries to attack, and when he wakes up, he sees everybody's had their butts handed to them. So Griever gloats about how she expected more, and Reed, having years and years of experience dealing with megalomaniacal tyrants, claims Griever only beat some of the family. If the whole family had been there, she would have lost. Well, she can't take that insult sitting down, could she? She lets Reed call upon the rest of the Fantastic Four, and we get treated to seeing the other side of the first issue's end. In the first issue, we saw how Reed was talking to Sue about believing in him and all that stuff, but in this issue, we see how Sue expresses doubt, and Reed claims about her trust in him gives him the power to do the impossible, as we saw. But in this issue, instead of being exciting, we read it as desperate. It's scary, because the signal, it wasn't just an announcement. Reed is literally trying to signal action for the Fantastic Four. Ben and Johnny are teleported from their scene upon the rooftop, and Griever is claiming deception immediately. Reed just invites her to meet his real Fantastic Four family. Literally everybody who served on the Fantastic Four, or his extended family as he describes them. And this issue ends on a heavy dose of excitement as well. And it's just so good how Slott moves us around to the same feeling but in a different way. They both end in hope and excitement, but they're different versions of it. And I mean, these feelings, they couldn't exist without both issues existing at the same time. It's the magic of comics that can only happen here. So now we're in the third issue, and it starts with Reed talking about how he was trying to prevent the universe from ending in the past, and how Griever was whispering about how he would lose in his mind. Reed realizes he must have been close to a solution, and Griever needed to destroy his hope. And this realization restores his hope not just in himself, but in everybody, in the situation. And so Reed has Ben and Johnny attack her machinery that he used to bring them there, and Reed then has the extended family go after Griever's ship, knowing she won't destroy the universe while she's in it, and then huddles with his primary family, revealing that Reed and company haven't seen Ben and Johnny in like 5 years, and Ben and Johnny have only not seen them in 1, because time passed a little differently for them. Cue the reunion with the kids, and it pulls on them tendinae again, but it's quickly ended when Reed reveals Griever cannot be beat. He also reveals he isn't giving up, but he has a plan and sends everybody on a job, assigning his son to fight Griever again. Now, given how badly Griever beat Franklin, he's pretty hesitant, and Spider-Man tries to give Franklin the good old great power speech when Ben just pulls Spider-Man off of him hilariously, and then sits down in front of him himself. So instead of trying to guilt Franklin into how he must do it because he has all this power, Ben just tells him the secret to his victories. It's just always standing back up no matter how hard he's hit, and it nicely mirrors his own victories with the Fantastic Four because Ben just can't be put down. He also lets Franklin know that he isn't alone with this, and family is there to back him up, so he doesn't have to be worried. And so Franklin, he's charged, he's hyped, he's ready to do it. And I gotta tell you, when Ben and him go to it, it is so exciting when Ben asks him to share his catchphrase, and they both yell, "It's clobbering time!" I mean, it's some real heart-in-the-throat stuff there. We get a bit more fighting, and Reed just suddenly stops the fight and declares it all done, just tells everybody to pack it up. Now, Griever, confused, claims they aren't done, and Reed reveals he figured out what Griever is. He sees her as the abstract concept of destruction and ending, and thus believes Griever can only destroy and not create, and this is why she's been using vehicles. With this in mind, Reed believes Griever has needed the technology to move around, and by destroying the rest of it, he has prevented her from leaving. But he made sure to leave one of her pods undestroyed so it can take her home. Now, he offers it to her, and if she refuses, the FF will take it, and she's stranded in the universe they're currently in. Obviously, she's smart enough to take it, and everybody takes a breather while Valeria and the Future Foundation are working on building a machine to return home, reinforcing that you can break things, but creatures, humans, living things, they can create them. Only being able to destroy things was Griever's limitations, but they are not restricted by such things. So the original four meet again on the side, and Johnny talks about how Reed and Sue could have just called he and Ben, which Reed protests, talking about how he did all these calculations. Johnny just outright rejects it and claims the only equation they ever needed was the 2 of Reed and Sue plus the 2 of Ben and Johnny, something even Reed must accept. Then Ben claims they need to go home quick because he needs his best man Reed. Reed kind of just takes it as a joke and claims Ben is also his best man, but then Ben has to emphasize that he needs his best man, and everybody figures out he means marriage to Alicia. And it's a heartwarming issue like the last 2 issues, but this one offers us one heck of a breather that we totally needed after all of this. This issue is great because it rounds out the first 2 issues about having missing family and needing family, and then just combining them and working together and trusting one another. I mean, it's such a wonderful issue that ends on such a great, sort of uplifting kind of, gotcha sort of way. So all in all, well, these issues were fantastic, no pun intended. But I really enjoyed these issues quite a bit. They're fresh, they capture the characters perfectly, and they really reinforce the whole dynamic of the Fantastic Four being a unit and family. And don't get me wrong, that was the point of this arc. A lot of people were pretty upset with how it didn't end with a big old blowout of power and punches, and I guess I can understand that. I mean, if it ended that way, it would completely betray the point of all this, and was definitely not the right place to look for that sort of comic. But if you're here to see a bunch of people hit one another, then I can understand why you wouldn't like these issues. But honestly, that's probably not what you should be looking for in the establishment of a family book. Nor should people be surprised when the Fantastic Four don't just beat people into a pulp and instead figure out other ways around defeat. It's just sort of their thing. It would be really weird if one of the smartest guys in the world came up against a scientific or divine obstacle and his plan was just straight, alright guys, we gotta hit it really hard, that's all we got, I've done all the calculations, just hit it, go, 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 go! It would be pretty bad, and so I'm glad it was the whole power of observation thing. The victor came through trust with one another and Reed being smart enough to know what he was dealing with via his interactions with other abstract cosmics, which sometimes also had these odd limitations. So it was wonderful to see something that wasn't like, how are we going to get really powerful, guys? We got to find out a way to be really powerful. And unfortunately, this brings me to where people were sort of complaining about how Griever was written dumb, or the story was written dumb. It seems weird to give her a dedicated paragraph, but she deserves one because she was sort of the wall the FF had to push against in Regelwyn. So, some of the dislikes was because she couldn't travel universes on her own because other abstracts can, and she just didn't seem to struggle that much. Some was because the fight wasn't better or how she seemed underpowered. Despite the fact not all abstracts can do the same thing and their powers tend to be restricted to whatever their domain is and none of them ever seem to be able to fight the same way. And since Griever's domain is entropy and not literally do anything and make her completely exchangeable to any other abstract, I'm not really bothered by any of this. Why? Well, I kind of like how the abstract aren't these beings who just all do the same thing, but for some reason they're happy to take on these roles that define them. Like, most abstracts can create and handle life, but Galactus needs to eat life. Why is Galactus like this? People will claim Galactus and others can cross universes, but Galactus' power isn't eating planets. That's just the side effect of his being able to be the abstract of necessity. The power cosmic he feels, that allows him to do that, just like the Surfer can. But we never see other abstract do this sort of thing. So is he some sort of special abstract or a false abstract? Because we see abstracts go to different realms and everything, but Marvel has never outright stated, to be an abstract you must have X amount of power and capability. They've always just defined it as being the embodiment of a concept, and so they have control over it. So, yeah. Griever doesn't have to be Eternity levels of power or even Galactus levels of power. Like, don't be those people who demand Marvel have some sort of a consistency for a concept they've never really tried to codify that much. Half the fun of the cosmic stuff is how it isn't some super structured, must be this to be that sort of thing. Just enjoy it. Or at least don't expect that the cosmos is some sort of weird mathematical equation where, if there isn't some sort of extremely specific level of heat or whatever, that Galactus or Mistress Love or whatever just can no longer be an abstract. Oh, can't travel dimensions, I guess you lost that. Griever didn't have a bad showing, so it's not like she wasn't insanely powerful. Remember, she was fighting Powerhouse and she was destroying universes. Why did that need the required secondary power of dimensional travel? I mean, I guess it's limiting, but it's not a bad thing. I imagine a little bit of the hate is that oddly subpopular trend to hate on Dan Slott for whatever reason, but this was actually a really good reintroduction to the Fantastic Four, and I highly encourage you to just try it. Either way, folks, thanks for watching and listening. Again, follow me on Twitter at @TheMattCave, and like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Now, I really glossed over a lot of these comics, even though I sort of covered the core of the story, because you should really go out and just read and buy these comics. They're fun, and the people who work their butts off for these comics deserve your patronage if you found them entertaining at all. Now, I noted in a previous cave painting about how I've been wanting to do this channel for years and even created this channel back in 2016, but created reason after reason to just not do it. Then the relaunch of this series was announced, and I said, I'll do it when this series starts, and it'll be my first episode. Now, funny enough, obviously, that's not what happened since this is the 5th episode, but that's life. I just enjoyed these comics, and I really hope you enjoy them too. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.